Hey everyone, welcome back to Mustache Rides. Just want to take a second to thank you all for the recent support on our very first video that Kevin and I put out. We worked really hard on it, and we just want to say thank you and that we really appreciate all the support. This video is going to be a post-race day recap. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into what happened on race day and give you guys a little bit of insight on what it's like to be in the Century Ride. So morning of the race, we rode our bikes over to the start line, which was about a mile. It was a beautiful morning. We were right on the water, sunrise, everything. It was just like really calm. It was cool in the morning. It was kind of perfect temperature. It was humid, which a little foreshadowing, got worse throughout the day. But we got to the start line. We're super excited. The anticipation, your heart's racing. It kind of feels like the race starts in 30 minutes, but it feels like 2 hours, right? So we got there about 30 minutes before. We're just hanging around, and eventually they let us go. And we had planned to stop. There were 5 rest stops, and we had planned to skip one of them. We wanted to make sure we hit, as many rest stops as we needed to for bathrooms, for refill fluids, and they had a lot of snacks and food throughout the race. So the first stop that we had was at mile 19, and this was a really good time to stop because we kind of jumped the gun. We were supposed to be pacing about 16.5 miles per hour, somewhere right around there. And through the first 19 miles, we paced about 20 to 21 miles per hour. But we were just so excited. It was in such a beautiful neighborhood. There were just houses everywhere, and all the views in Chicago was awesome. And we were in a big group of people, and if you know anything about biking, you can start drafting, and once you get into a big group and everybody's going, everybody just tries to keep up with each other. And so it was a lot of fun. The first 19 miles were, I think, part of my favorite portion of the race, just because of all the energy that was there and everybody's so excited to get out of the start line. The next rest stop was at, I believe, mile 34, and we skipped that one and we were shooting right for the mile 48. So we just wanted to kind of keep going. That next stretch was a little tough because we had just, like I said, we had just come off going so fast. So we really focused on trying to dial it back a little bit. I think we were averaging about 17 to 18 miles per hour during that stretch. So when we finished, we were about almost halfway through the race already. So we kind of took a second, regrouped, had some food. These rest stops had some of the most ridiculous foods I've ever seen in a Century Ride. They had burgers, hot dogs, pizza. They had all different sorts of stuff. Some people call this race the Tour de Food because they have different foods at every rest stop. Me personally, not something I will eat during a race, but there were plenty of people that enjoyed those foods while they were there, including Ben. But we basically got kind of situated there. We took a little bit of a longer rest there. I think we were there for probably about 8 minutes before we went back out. This was kind of an interesting time because the rest stop was about a mile off of the course. So, and we didn't really know this until we got there. So we were adding on a couple miles to the race. So this race was overall 103 miles. And this is where part of it came in, where they had their rest stop set up, there was no good spot around there. So you had to kind of duck into a little area where they had bathrooms in a little house that you could kind of go into. So we went through there. At this point, I was exhausted. I was dizzy. The humidity was killing me. It was kind of the peak heat of the day. It heated up. I think that day it got to about 95 degrees. And I believe it was changing between about 70 to 80% humidity throughout the day. So at this point, in my head, I am kind of teetering. You're at the point of, you're still okay, but you can see you still have a lot of ride left. And I think personally, miles 50 through 85 are the hardest. And I know that's a big range, but there'll be times in there that you feel really good, but it's the anticipation of knowing, okay, I just rode 50 miles and I have to do that again. And so you're already kind of beat down, and that's the hardest part of the whole hurdle is not staying focused on that. So at that point, you really just have to stay calm. You really have to kind of keep your mind off of it. And what I do is I break it up. So instead of saying I have 50 miles left, I say, okay, I need to go 10 miles. And I don't think about the rest of the race. I just have to ride 10 miles, which doesn't seem like a lot. And then when you get to that next 10 miles, you go, I have another 10 miles to ride. And you break it up that way. Some people break it up by rest stops, which I do too. You kind of count down the miles until you get to the next rest stop and you use it as a good break. So at this point, that's where I'm diving into. I'm really trying to dive deep mentally and kind of overcome the negative self-talk of you can stop at any point, just pull over, you know, it's not worth it, this, that. So that's why I call that the dark part of the race. You kind of go into this part where everybody's a little irritated, you know, you're just not feeling all that good. But if you're able to push through in 10-mile increments, I think it's super helpful. So at this point, we went to the next rest stop, which was around mile 68, I believe. And we had some snacks, same thing. This was, I think, the hardest part for me. This is where I hit my peak low mentally. And at this point, everything was hurting. My knees, my hands, my shoulders, your neck, everything hurts because you're leaning forward and just putting all this pressure on your body for several hours. So at this point, I was trying to get off the bike for a minute and just step away, walk around a little bit, and give my hands a break and my neck a break. So when you're biking and you're leaned over and you're holding your head up that long, your neck hurts so bad and you need a break. So sitting upright fully is definitely helpful. At this point, we were 35 miles out. We made it to the next rest stop, so mile 68 to, I believe, 88. And that was where we met my sister and my nephew. And that was the best part of the race for me motivationally. I knew I needed to see somebody there. I knew I needed a little motivation, and seeing my sister and seeing my nephew was exactly what we needed at that point. And we got to settle in. We hung out with them for a minute, and my sister's great about hyping me up and giving me some really good advice. And then we had the final stretch. So after the rest stop at mile 88, there was no more rest stops, and it was just us and the finish line. That was all that was left. And there was a really nice neighborhood that we went through, so it was really nice to have views of nice houses, water, you know, the lake is there. It really was kind of coming to a close. We really pushed hard those last few miles and just put our heads down. We were in a small group at that point, but everybody was kind of separated, so there wasn't a lot of drafting going on, but we just me and Ben kind of stuck together. We pushed really hard, and a funny story is we missed the finish line the first time. We made a wrong turn and realized, so we had to kind of turn around and go back towards the finish line. One of those things that, you know, you got the brain fog at this point. You're a little dizzy, you're a little delirious. All you want to do is finish. And so we turned around, went back through the finish line, felt so good to be done, came through, and we were absolutely exhausted, but you get this jolt of energy right when you finish, right? You know you're done, you know that you're able to get off that bike now and just enjoy everything that you've done and get a really big meal afterwards. So we got in, we settled down, we really just took in a moment to appreciate it and soak it in and enjoy the views that we had. It was a phenomenal race. We had a great time. We finished in 6 hours and 6 minutes, which my plan was to hopefully get under 6.5. Really kind of impressed ourselves. I don't think either of us thought we were going to be able to finish it in that time, but all in all, it was a great race, great training. Already miss it, want to be training again. So now that the race is officially over, I am going to be shifting gears into a different activity. I've never been a long distance runner, but I am going to train for a marathon. Would love for you guys to come along the journey and see what it's like from only running a 5K in my life to running a marathon. Appreciate all the support and hope you guys follow me through that next journey.